Hi, I'm Shona Hutchings and welcome back to my channel, Creative Zone. In today's video, I'm going to be painting with acrylic paint on fabric. For fabric that's going to be used outdoors, I'm going to be making simple garden decoration, and if you're keen to make a banner or flags or anything that needs to be hung outside in the garden or at a market stall and you don't have fabric paints, this simple hack will help you to use acrylic paints instead, and it's not hardening the fabric as much as acrylic paints are known to.
And so let's get into the video. I'll show you what I use to make these flags that decorate the garden. A pair of scissors, and this is just some little squares of bamboo cloth or wipe. I get them in a roll from the supermarket in the cleaning aisle, and they are very helpful with smoothing the paint across the fabric. This is 2 meters of a cotton calico that I'll be using, and it is approximately, I think, about half a foot in depth. I'm using Atelier Gesso and the Eraldo di Paolo. Here I'm using a warm blue and they're purple. I also have this spritzer bottle, which as you can see has a lot of paint on it. So it's just got water in it. This is my little paint tray, which I also cover with some of the bamboo cloth that I mentioned. I just lay a sheet down and then I use some water to dampen it down, quite a bit of water. And I use a torn off piece of baking paper. So I put the baking paper down over the top of the wet bamboo. You may have seen this little hack before. It's very useful to keep the paints cool and wet. It stops them from drying out. So I've just placed that down, smoothed it over, and I also dampen my fabric. So as you can see, I'm just showing you that I have wet it, washed it, and laying it down on the table. I also use the spritzer bottle just to keep it a little bit damp. And yes, apologies for the bad lighting in this video, my overhead light wasn't working. So I also use a roller, a sponge roller, and I'm just putting some of the, I don't have much left, but I'm putting some of the warm blue on my palette and then some of the purple. And I'll be adding to that some of the white gesso, just spritzing this to get the residue out of the bottle. I'm going to leave that just to drain. So as you can see, I'm not using a lot of acrylic paint, and this is key to the fabric not ending up too stiff. Because the fabric is damp, and you can spritz it if it's not damp enough, and I was just showing you some gloves there. If you don't want to use your fingers like I am, then you can, that's another option to use gloves. I'm very tactile, and so I really enjoy using just my bare hands to put the paint down on the fabric. But as I was saying, I'm not using a lot of paint, And with the wet on wet here, the damp paint and the damp fabric and this damp bamboo cloth, it allows the fabric to soak into it allows the paint to soak into the fabric, and this means that you need less paint. I'm going for a very landscapey kind of background. I am going to be adding to this. So I'm not thinking very much about how to lay these down. I'm just sort of pretty much sticking my hands in the paint and going for it. This is some of the Hydrocryl Lemon Yellow, but it was a bit dried out, so I used some of the spritzer bottle to wet it, and then I used it like a crayon almost and moved it across the bottom of the fabric. And now I'm using the bamboo cloth to blend it in with the blue, the warm blue. And I've just moved the fabric along, so I'm doing the fabric in sections. Normally I would take the fabric and outside and use it on my very long stainless steel bench that I have, and then I can do the whole, that's my bench there, and then I can do the whole piece of fabric. But I'm working inside today, and the bench I'm working on is a lot shorter, so I just moved the fabric along in sections. So it is possible, if you want to do it inside, but probably put something down on your table. This is a marble-like worktop, so it doesn't matter for me if I get paint on it. And here I'm just adding the white gesso into the yellow. As I moved the fabric along, it was leaning over the edge of the bench, and there was a bit of a line on the fabric, so I'm basically just using the gesso and a little bit of the yellow to just remove that and blend. Because the fabric is still damp, it blends really easily. I know these shadows are very annoying, flitting across the screen because of my lack of lighting. This will improve in the latter part of the video where I got the light working again. I'm just adding a little bit of purple just to one side to match what I had done on the other side of the fabric. And just showing you the length of the fabric. So I'm very happy with that background. That's just the underside of the fabric. You can see the paint goes through easily and covers the back of the fabric as well. So here are some stencils. I was just looking through them to try and decide which ones I would like to use as the second layer, as some people say, layer or layer. And I have the diamond shaped one, a stencil with birds and a sort of explosion of leaves, circular pattern, which I really like. So I think I'm going to use this one. I've got the numbers and letters. I don't think I end up using the cardboard stripes. And for the initial layer, I'm just going to use a clean palette and the roller to put down some white patterns from the stencils. So just get a good coating on the roller. Here I'm using this bee stencil, a honeycomb stencil. Having a bit of what I call a brain fart there. So I just run the roller over the this one is not a stencil actually. It is the bottom I cut the plastic off the bottom of a tray that food came in and washed it, and now I am using the roller onto the honeycomb pattern and then just pushing it down into the fabric, just quite lightly and randomly across the fabric. So what I'm wanting to do here is just work up a little bit of a secondary background. And again, because the fabric is still damp and the bamboo cloth is damp, if there is any leakage from the stencils, it's easy just to wipe it off or blend it into the fabric. I decided to use this little number and letter stencil just to run some across, also again random places on the fabric. And this is what I call my mermaid tail stencil. So I'm turning it all sorts of angles. And when this dries, it dries very lightly on the fabric. Finally, I'm using this sort of star pattern, stars within circles. I'm just deciding which way I want that bird stencil to go. And in the meantime, I'm using some of the golden liquid paints, so the Pyrole Orange and quinacridone Nickel Azo Gold. And I'm also using some of the gold paint from Golden. Just mixing those on the palette loosely. And because the orangey gold colours blend really well with they match the purples and blues that are on the fabric already, it just gives a nice pop of colour to the birds. As you can see here, I had a run over the side of the stencil, and as I was saying before, I'm just using that damp bamboo cloth just to blend it into the fabric, and it ends up looking really fine in the end, just sort of like a sort of sunsetty colour in the background. So I'm doing a variety of the larger birds, the beautiful leaf, circular leaf stencil down the bottom, and the smaller birds across the top as well. I wasn't very mindful about needing to stitch the top. I stitched twine across the top of the flags, so my recommendation would be to bring those birds just down ever so slightly. This is the flags finished after I'd sewn the twine onto them and torn them into equal flag sizes, and they're hanging outside near the fairy garden that I have on the verge. I'm coming to the end of the video now, and this is them all lit up at night.
Thanks for watching my video. I hope it was useful and that you can experiment with acrylic paints yourself. If, however, you want to wash the fabric repeatedly, then fabric paints would be my recommendation. Fabric paints will keep the fabric soft, but if you don't have them on hand and you are using the fabric, as I say, for outdoor use, then acrylics will work, and using this technique is a great hack for good results. If you like this video, please share it with a friend. It does help my channel to grow. Please hit the subscribe button beneath this video, and then if you want notifications of when the next video is going to drop, then just press the bell icon underneath the video also. I look forward to sharing more with you in the next video.